just because we finished the class, but things that you feel you need to work on. So I would love to hear that from people. That's important to me. And Gabby, maybe you should tell me first how your boyfriend is doing, and are you still with them and still with
Yeah, no,
him?
we're
Josh,
still together. Yeah.
how's his family
I'm
doing?
sorry. I like this. Um, they're doing the best they can. Things have been difficult. I also, in my own family, had a loss recently as well, so it's just been a time of
I'm sorry,
loss.
who did you lose?
So, my grandfather, he
I'm
had brain
sorry.
cancer, and so that
Oh,
was maybe a month or two ago. But
wow.
mm, yeah, so it's just a lot of loss, but we have
But you
each
have
other,
each
so
other.
that's
Yeah,
good.
I'm glad. Okay, great. That's great. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
All right. So if people looked into it, made a list of topics that they would like to learn more about, I would love to hear. So I'm putting together a schedule for next year, other than the usual.
I have a question. Like, for example, when you have classes during the day, like,
Yeah,
and if they are not in Hebrew, for example, are we allowed to take them?
of course. What do you mean allowed? I mean, does there money? Do you have to sign up? Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, like, do we have to sign up or do we can just like email you and you'll.
Yeah, you can just come on. I mean, if you need the link, first of all, the password is always BAYIT, buy it, lowercase
Mm-hmm.
b. So as long as you have the link to every weekday classes, you can just get on. If there's yeah, you just get on. You don't even have to do anything except get on the Zoom. You're
Oh,
very,
because I
very welcome
noticed
to
you
join.
teach sometimes on Wednesday, and I could come to work a little earlier if
That would
sometimes
be
I'm
great.
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would be great. So, yeah, we're continuing next year with the same topic of tapping into Tehillim, which are Psalms. So we'll be learning about favorite Psalms, well-known Psalms. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been a very popular topic. People have really found that very, very meaningful because we often recite Psalms together, either part of our liturgy or when we're getting together. So this gives people an opportunity to have more of a window into it. So yeah, and any other, it doesn't, not only mine, Reb Stevens, we always have special classes before the high holidays, or we usually do have special classes. So you're always welcome to come on to any class. As far as I know, we don't ask for payment for anything. I'm trying to think if it's anything we ask payment for. I don't think so. Sometimes you just need to sign up, but not usually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Absolutely. Everybody is welcome to do that. No problem.
Thank you.
Sure, pleasure. Now, what about topics? I really want to hear.
Well,
Gabby, you want to share? Yeah, Mariana, why don't you start?
I mean, for me, I think I would maybe we can recap more Shabbat and because there is so much.
So much, I know, right? Shabbat, go into more depth. Yep.
Yeah. So I was thinking
Shabbat in
that
depth. Great. Okay. What else? Great.
because when we did the Rosh Hashanah, not Rosh Hashanah, oh my gosh,
Rosh
Passover.
Chodesh. Oh,
When we did
Passover. Yep.
Passover, it was pretty hard.
I remember because each of you was great because each of you sent me that list, and that was a really good way for me to tell how you were doing with the
Yeah, and then we
material.
sent another one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that was great. Everybody, corrected what needed to be corrected. And then just, the whole point is that you'll know what to do. That's the goal. The goal is not
Mm-hmm.
to, not just to correct, it's so that you'll know. And I think it was good because it brought up things that you did or didn't understand. So maybe what we'll do is we'll do that going forward, ask you to recap X, whatever X is. I think that might be a good way for you to check yourself, and then we can see I can get a better feel for what it is that I'm missing. It seems so obvious to me when I'm teaching something, or I guess when Hannah teaches something, but this way was a good way to find the little points that were, that I thought were clear, but weren't actually clear.
Yeah.
So does that feel like a good way going forward? Gabby, do you like that? You also do? Great.
Yes.
All right. So just something we'll think about. I'll talk with Hannah about that. I really like that. To sort of do a summary after learning. Does that make sense? After we learn a
Mhm.
topic, or maybe we'll pick other topics also during the year, even stuff we didn't go into and say, like, something that's really important is what's the difference between holidays and Shabbat, things like that.
Mhm.
I think that's a great idea. Han and I will, you know what, we'll work on that. I love that idea. That'll be terrific. And then you yourself will have, just trying to think, maybe you'll make it in kind of a Google Doc so that you have a way to go back and have your own summary. That'll be good for you. That's actually a good way for you to have a summary of all sorts of topics. Okay, great. What topic, Gabby, would you be interested in?
Well,
Or
I think
topics?
maybe just more going into shul and what to expect at shul, things like that. I know we had a lesson about that at one point, but I definitely want
Yeah.
more of that, especially now I've been going to shul more often.
Yep.
And I'm practicing my Hebrew, but I still, I'm obviously not there yet. So it's still kind of hard for me to always know exactly where we're at. And I'm
Oh,
like,
sort of the layout of the Siddur. And
yeah,
do you use the transliterated Siddur?
I do, yes. And my boyfriend's aunt, he goes as well. And so I sit with her. So lately I've been asking like, what page are we on if I find her?
Yeah. Who is that? Your boyfriend's what?
Aunt.
Oh, her aunt. Yeah, his aunt. Yeah, good. Okay, good. Yep, that's very helpful. Yeah, but so about going again over the choreography and what to expect, what it
Yeah,
should
that was
look like. Would that be helpful? Great.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yes.
yeah, because even if I taught it once or twice, we can always go over that again. I think that's a great idea. Okay,
That's
wonderful.
such a broad topic. You can teach and teach on that one.
What of prayer? I know prayer and shul is just it's a hard one. Yeah. So Toya, what about you?
I feel like in preparation for conversion, I'm not sure what they will like test or quiz me on, but I really do.
Who is
But I've
they?
been practicing the baked-ins, the baked-in.
You mean
I mean,
that
I'm
I'm
sure
gonna
there were.
bring the
I'm
baked in that
sorry.
I'm going, the baked in that I'll
Yeah,
convene? I
yeah.
can tell you, they're not going to test you really, but that's a good idea for us to talk about. I like that. We can even
Yeah.
talk about that now. Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm working on my blessings, my
Oh,
brachas. So
good.
yes,
Yeah,
now that's my goal is to get those down pat, all of them, not
that's
just
awesome.
the easy one, which is Shehakol is pretty easy. I kind of caught that
Love
one.
it. Love
Hamotzi,
it.
I've caught on pretty much too. And washing hands, I've also caught on pretty much too.
That's amazing. And
So,
every time you get another one down, do the next one.
yes, that's
I
the
think
goal.
that's I like that. That's what I suggest. And I love that you're doing. That's awesome. So I'm actually going to talk a little bit about, why don't I talk? I will talk to you about the 3 weeks and the 9 days, but,
Perfect.
because I think it's important to know, but let me really go over I might as well go over with all of you, what the conversion itself actually looks like. So hold on one second. Okay, so first of all, at least when it goes through me, so then I would only bring you to the conversion if I feel that you're ready. What does that mean? I feel that you're ready. That means that you keep Shabbat properly. I mean, again, properly to the best of your knowledge, right? But meaning, refraining from electronics, from computer, and cooking before Shabbat, understanding the difference between cooking before Shabbat, right? Not working those days, knowing that those are the days, Shabbat and holidays. This just has to do with being an observant Jew. And how to prepare Shabbat properly, how to heat up food on Shabbat, what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do, keeping Shabbat, also having Kiddush and Shabbat meals. So both the refraining commandments as well as the positive commandments. Okay, so and Shabbat and holidays, it's a big bucket, but it does include all of them as well. And, usually I think at that point, people also know the different holidays, even if they don't remember each one, which are biblical, which are rabbinic, but it's keeping that lifestyle. I guess that would include fast days. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not able to fast, that doesn't mean that, we're talking about medically or if you're not able to for some reason, but knowing about them and doing your best. Like Yom Kippur is, of course, biblical. Tisha B'Av is the next in importance. And then the 4 minor fasts, just understanding them. And I really want to encourage you, by the way, because I put out halachic guidelines for every holiday, every fast day, the 3 weeks. I put them out it should be on our website as well as in our emails. I really, really encourage you to read them every Chag. When we put them out for everybody, but for you, this is a great, review every year of the base, not Shabbat, that's not something I do every week, but all the holidays, it tells you when it starts, when it ends, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what to keep. Now, the times aren't so helpful for you, Gabby, because Florida is different. The times, like those are New York times to light candles and stuff. But other than the actual times, everything else is the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I go on Chabad.org to check candle lighting times for
Yeah,
Shabbat.
it's not just candle lighting, it's also when Shabbat is out or when holidays are
Yeah,
out,
okay.
right?
Okay.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that our halachic guidelines are going to be helpful to you no matter what. And what's really important to me, and Latoya, this doesn't mean, once you're converted, that doesn't mean you can't ask me. You can always ask me forever and ever and ever. Everybody here, you can always ask me questions. I'm happy if you know that, because that makes our guidelines better. Like something that's obvious to me, but isn't obvious to you. I prefer to clarify the guidelines, but I really want to encourage you because this is your best cheat sheet before every holiday. Is the guidelines that I put together for every holiday. All right. Does that make sense? Okay. So it means you're already Shabbat observant, again, to the best of your knowledge, but hopefully your knowledge is good. You light candles, you make kiddush. At least you're starting a little bit with benching grace after meals, I would hope, certainly doing brachot. You might just start with the singing of the first paragraph. I think I keep saying I'm going to send you a recording and I haven't done that, so I probably should do that. Even if you just do the first paragraph, I feel better about that. Because that's actually a biblical commandment. I don't know if you remember that. The grace after meals after having bread. That's one, well, I guess blessings kind of go together with prayer. So I would want to know that you're doing some prayer every day. It could be the modani, the washing the hands, al netilat yadayim, right? It could be that, doing blessings. When you can go a little further, the Shema prayer, where we put our hands on our eyes, that's an important prayer. I would like to know that you take time, maybe the morning blessings where you thank God, the morning blessings, we've talked about them. That would be a good one to do as well, again, about opening your eyes and about standing on your feet and getting dressed. So do you remember those? Those are gratitude blessings. We could do another class on that as well next year, Gabby and Mariana. And by the way, Latoya, you can still get, if you wish, the emails. And then if you see it's a topic that you're interested in, you're so welcome to come. It's not like you can't join. Some people do it even after they convert. It's nice for them, but that's really up to you. If you feel you're missing, that's an easy way to get into it. So you're doing some prayer blessings. Of course, my hope is that you're starting at least to read Hebrew, to learn Hebrew, because again, I want to say those who are going to have a Jewish family and children, it's easy for your children to surpass, to run right by you. Now it seems very far away, and I hope that you're all blessed with children for those of childbearing age. But, when they're learning Hebrew and they quickly run by you, it's better now to spend the time so that when they come home with Hebrew, at some point they may surpass you. But at least for the first few years, you'd be able to follow through with them. And I think that's very important for your own feeling and self-esteem and for your children. So it's a lot of work, but you've put in the hard work of learning how to be an observant Jew. This is another step. It's kosher, keeping kosher. So that's important, inside the home, outside the home. And then Latoya, Will, and Jeff, we have to go through, we did it once, but I think we have to do it again to go through the kitchen. I did that with Chelsea 2 weeks before her wedding, and we just went through everything. This has to be kosher. This has to be thrown away. This has to be immersed in a mikveh. Remember? She was so proud of herself when she got to, this has to be tovel. This has to be, she was able to figure the difference. Like as we were doing it, she was getting it. So we need to do that in the summer before you become Jewish, before you enter into the kosher home. It has to be, actually, anytime we could do it already. And July is better because in August I'm going to Israel to meet my new granddaughter. So, and the rest of them. So I want to make sure everything is kosher, kosher, kosher. And the only thing that's left is the immersion in the mikveh, which is a special mikveh that's behind the mikveh building that's just for dishes. That's the one in Riverdale. So keeping kosher is very important. Understanding what it means to keep kosher, really having everything kosher, everything in your kitchen and your home kosher, everything. And like, would you be comfortable inviting me? Not that I'm any more careful about kosher than you are, just that would be a good gauge for you. If you'd be comfortable inviting me, then that may, yeah. And people make mistakes, but don't think that people don't. And also, we eating out also to be careful, you know, where do you eat? How do you eat out? That's also something. Like somebody who keeps kosher in their home but eats treif outside, non-kosher, that doesn't go so well with me. But some people might eat in vegan restaurants, which I, you know, that I can accept without wine products. That's like the easiest way. Vegetarian restaurants don't cut it as well because there's the cheeses and other things that are not actually non-kosher. And for those in a heterosexual relationship, it's keeping the laws of nida, of family purity. So, you know, and of course it's important to know about our history and to know about our books and to, you know, to have a general knowledge of Judaism, all the extra things that we try to teach during the year, how to do life cycle events, just what they mean, what they're like, the kind of books, the names that we use when we speak about our great rabbi, just to know that, to know, I'd love to know that you're doing the parsha of the week, even just the summary, even just go to Chabad and do summary or My Jewish Learning, or learn it at your Shabbat table, or buy a book by Rabbi Sachs, or this is a terrific book, by the way. This is a book by an Israeli journalist, a woman. It's called #Parasha. And it's like 3 or 4 short articles for each parsha of the week. And I find it very readable, just tells you a little bit about the parsha. She became Orthodox in her teens. She does follow Chabad, but I do find it like easy to follow. So I recommend it. If you want to buy a slightly lighter book, you could get Rabbi Sachs. If you want to go a little bit deeper, of course, there's always even deeper. But, you know, I never want to put on you too much. But that's important because it's part of our cycle in Judaism. I want to know that you're going to a shul, that you're part of an Orthodox community. Those are all things. So once you're at that stage, that makes sense to people? Like once you're basically there, then it's just a question of when you feel ready enough and when it's time. If somebody's in a romantic relationship and they're getting married, then the conversion is going to happen either the day before or 3 days, you know, a few days before the wedding. It's not going to happen way before because we don't have the couple sleeping together, and that can be complicated and difficult. So that has to do with the timing. Everybody clear on that till now? Great. And the other thing we ask is that you write a journey document, which tells a little bit about yourself. And I have did I send you that, Latoya? I'm going to send that to you because you're the next on. Okay. So the journey document, it has also guiding questions in it of how to answer it. You know, where did you start? What was your origin of faith? What do you connect with? How did you get to where you are today? It's basically your journey document. You always send it to me first. I'll read it and, you know, let you know if I feel something is missing. That will get shared with the Beit Din. And that will actually go into, and that way they get to know you a little bit. That'll go into your file by the IRF, the International Rabbinic Fellowship, which holds and stamps your conversion document. The 3 rabbis, male rabbis, will sign it, and they then I will make sure that everything gets sent to the IRF. They will stamp it, and they'll scan it, and then they send it to you. So you have a certified conversion document. All right? Cool. Then let me just tell you, because 3 women, I might as well just explain to you how the conversion goes. For a man, it's a little different because a man has to go through circumcision or a pinprick of blood. And so here's what happens. The day of the mikvah, you have to get ready for mikvah pretty much like you would get ready for mikvah after bleeding, similar, meaning you have to wash your whole body and make sure there's no barriers, like you take out all jewelry. Nail polish, this is the way they describe it. As long as it's nail polish that looks nice enough that you'd go to the shul dinner or a wedding, then you don't have to take off your nail polish. But if it's like cracked or chipped, then you have to take it off. Does anybody know why? Why would that be? Why is that a differentiation? Any thoughts? You know, you can unmute everybody. Really, we're very small. So it's,
Well,
yeah, go on.
okay. Well, I'm just thinking, I know it's a lot with purity, of course. So the chipped nails, it shows that it's not the most, like, it's not the top of the best, like as if you would be it's like a thing for God too, right? So
That's a nice way to look at it. I like that. I think that's really beautiful. That's a very spiritual way to look at it. Not that I'm surprised, Latoya, that you would come up with spiritual, but it has to do more with the logistics. I'll tell you what I mean. Although it's pretty similar in the end, it has to be no barrier, no obstacle. So if it's something that's part of your body, then you consider like, if you get especially gel or one of those, like, you're not going to take them off. It's sort of part of your skin for those 2 or 3 weeks. But if it's chipped or cracked, then obviously this is not something you'd want to go out in public with because it's not the best. But I like the way you said it, that you want to always be the best of the best for God. That's a beautiful way to say it too. In any case, you get ready and then you come in, you meet the three men in the Beit Din. And there is a part I might ask you to step out, Jeff. So, and then they'll get to know you. They'll ask you questions. They've read your journey document and they might say, what's your favorite mitzvah? Or tell me a little bit about yourself, just to get to know you. Not, it's not so much testing. They might say to you, how do you prepare for Shabbat? What does kosher mean to you? Just to get a feeling. Not so much they're worried about testing you because they're assuming if I'm bringing you there, but they might do that. So the questions that we ask, are you here of your own free will, not coerced by anyone? You don't have to write it down. I can send it to you. Do you affirm a belief in God, the creator of the world? Do you disavow belief in other gods? Do you affirm a faith in the written and oral Torah? Do you believe in halakha? Do you accept on yourself the binding nature of commandments, even those you don't know yet? Do you commit to observance of Shabbat and holidays and kashrut and nida and prayer and blessings, the things we spoke about? Do you commit to the ethical commandments of charity and kindness, building a Jewish home with your partner, and offering a Jewish education to any children you may be blessed with? Do you recognize, this is important, do you recognize that the Jewish people have been oppressed and persecuted and victims of violence throughout our history until and including today? And even so, cast your lot in with the Jewish people. Those are actually questions we ask the convert in the mikveh because that's the moment before they immerse and their Jewish soul descends into their body. So it's not like last chance. It's like, this is what you're accepting on yourself, all of these questions. So what happens for women, since only men can be on a Beit Din, unfortunately, in Orthodoxy. So it's changed. It used to be like they would maybe poke their heads in the room. Now because when you're in the mikveh, you're completely naked, but they give you a big sheet, a huge sheet, which you poke your head through. So it's really all around you, so you can't see anything. You understand? I just want you to know that. And the 3 men will basically just open the door a little bit and look at the back of your head. They might ask you to turn around so they see your face. They will hear that you go down, and immerse. The mikveh lady says kosher, and then you'll say the blessing, which I usually say, and then repeat after me. And then they leave and we shut the door completely. And only then do you take off the sheet and go down without anything on. And then what we say is bring like a cookie or a cracker or something and make a bracha afterwards as a Jewish person, or anything you want, fruit, whatever it is. So that's what the conversion feels like. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. Just so you know. Does that make you feel like, Latoya, you can be ready in September?
yeah, I definitely feel like I can. Everything is pretty much what I've been doing and practicing anyway. So
Great.
yeah.
Great. Okay. Terrific. All right. So, and I still want you to think of what it is you need to work on in the summer, Latoya. Take on yourself so you can think about it. Gabby and Mariana, anything else that comes up for you, you're of course welcome to reach out and let me know. We'll be sending a schedule once Hannah and I sit down and do it. Once we have one. It's not going to happen so soon because she's doing something called CPE, which is chaplaincy, clinical pastoral education. And it's so intense. You can't do anything else when you're doing CPE. So she can't even sit and, set up a schedule with me. But when she finishes, we'll sit and we'll do it. And then we'll decide, how was the history classes with her? How did that go?
It was very good. It was interesting.
Yeah, I thought those were great.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm glad we added them to our repertoire. That's terrific. If there's anything else like that you feel you're missing, you let us know. Okay, so should we talk a little bit about the 3 weeks? I think you need to know about them. That's a really important period in our summer. And do you have the source sheet, or should I bring it up on the screen? Oh, you printed it, great. This isn't exactly a source sheet. It's based on a class that I gave, just so you know. So
Mhm.
instead of writing a whole source sheet with all of you can just Google the 3 weeks or read
Yeah.
it in Telushkin's book or look up, you'll get all the words, all the buzzwords.
I just need to have it in my hands. I'm old school.
Oh,
And
no,
it's-
no, that I understand. Usually I made a chart with all the 9 days. But I didn't do that for this one
Mhm.
because I just took a source sheet that I made and decided to use that instead. So 1 second. 1 minute. Okay. All right. So I guess what I want, everybody looking at it, or do you want me to put on the screen? Do you have it? You have it, Latoya? Great. And you, Gabby, you have it? You can let Jeff know if he wants to come back, he can come back. So what do I mean by new morning and old morning? Let's first talk about what are the three. Who knows anything about the 3 weeks or the 9 days or Tisha B'Av? Anything?
I believe students were like they died. A bunch of is that a rap?
I'm
Oh
sorry.
no. This is the
No.
destruction of the temples.
It's a fast, right?
It's also a fast day. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Destruction of the temples. Great. Does that mean anything to you, Gabby? You familiar with that? Okay. So everybody can stay unmuted from my point of view. So the truth is that the two temples, so even till today, there is communal, the same way we celebrate Passover and the Exodus, most people celebrate it. We also commemorate the destruction of the two temples, the first temple and the second temple. There's a teaching that Messiah, Mashiach will come, that'll be the third temple. And whatever that means, there'll be peace. I don't know what there'll be. We wish it would happen today. In any case, they weren't actually destroyed on the same exact day, but I think it was 1 day apart. But the rabbi said, you're not going to fast 2 days in a row. I might as well just pick 1 day of mourning. Now, this is what the rabbis refer to as old mourning. Now, what does that mean to you when I say old mourning?
It means it's not personal because the destruction of the temples. But
Right?
the other one is personal when you lose a loved one or a relative or just
Exactly. But it's also physically new, right? When you lose somebody, a relative, it's new, it's fresh. You're feeling the grief. We
Yeah.
didn't live at the time of the temple. So it's a mourning that's a communal mourning, M-O-U-R, but it's an old mourning. It's not new mourning, it's old mourning. So here's something beautiful that the rabbi said. It was really quite brilliant. I think we've learned about how after somebody dies, close that there's Shiva, the 7 days, and then we step down to 30 days, then we step down to a year. Do you remember that we talked about that with the morning practice? Well, you know about that, Gabby, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember that, Latoya? I'm just trying to remember if we had a class. Okay, you don't have to remember every detail, but just the fact that when it's new morning, we say, oh my goodness, it's so fresh, it's so hard. And we first cocoon the family as much as we can by giving them a week where they sit Shiva. Shiva means 7. They sit on low stools if they can. People make them food. We come to comfort them. So that's kind of, and they're not supposed to go to work unless they absolutely have to. So that's Shiva, that's the 7 days. There are other expressions of mourning, like tearing a piece of clothing that they own, wearing,
Not shaving, I remember.
not shaving, not getting haircuts, don't shower very much in the week of Shiva. They used to not shower at all. Today, people shower every day. So people take a very, very quick shower. And because they don't care about their own grooming, but today everybody pretty much showers every day. So that's a little different. And they don't step out of the house as a rule. There's often prayer services in the home. So that's the week of Shiva. They don't go out socially. Then the next 3 weeks complete Shloshim, complete the 30 days of the first 30 days. And that's a step down in mourning, meaning you're allowed to leave the house. You can put on regular shoes. You can take showers and you can go to work. but you're still limiting your social interactions, live music, things like that. And then for parents, there's another up to a year, only for parents, another 11 months of morning practice, again, step down. So you can do even more things, but you don't, usually you don't go to like live concerts, and you don't go to weddings, or if you're going to a wedding or a live music bar mitzvah or something like that. So you might step out for the musical part, that kind of thing. Everybody with me on that, just in general? So that makes sense to people who have new mourning, because you're feeling the grief viscerally. And I would say across the board, not 100% of the cases, but most cases, people say, oh, Shiva and shows, like that made sense to me, that over the course of the year or the 30 days, I slowly integrated back into social circles. So now that happens because the grief is so palpable. But what happens when you're grieving the temples? You don't feel grief. If I told you right now, boom, it's now 8:05. At 8:15, we're mourning the temples. It would be like, wait, what? Like, what do I have to do? How do I prepare myself, right? Because you're not feeling a keen sense of loss because it's old mourning. So they did something very smart. They flipped the model. They said, you know what? Let's step up the mourning a little bit by something called the 3 weeks. Then we'll step up the mourning a little bit more, and we'll culminate the mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-G, on Tisha B'Av, which is the day we commemorate the loss. And that day will be like a Shiva. So it's kind of like the year to the 30 to the week of Shiva, but in a backwards model, so that we have time to get into the mode of being sad and understanding that this is a sad part of the year. Does that make sense to people? I can repeat it. But that's the idea. That was the psychological idea behind the way the 3 weeks, so the 3 weeks are 3 weeks, actually 3 weeks in one day. Then the last 9 days, step it up. And then the very last day, Tisha B'Av, is the most stepped up of the morning, of the sadness. So that you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Does that make sense? Like, kind of think of it like you're taking a course in sadness. So, you got to get into it slowly. And what they did was that they put parallels. They used a lot of the customs that we do for the morning. They used parallels in flipping the model. Now, just questions until here. Any questions? No? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's look at the source sheet. Sorry, I'm looking to the side. That's just where my source sheet is on another screen. So the picture that I gave you was a rendition of what it was like for people when the second, I think that was the second temple was destroyed. They're literally sitting Shiva. Do you see them in the picture? A lot of them are sitting and weeping. Well, it's hard to tell, but they're so sad. They don't know what to do, because they actually, for them, that was new mourning 2,000 years ago, or however many, right? Because for them, this was fresh. They couldn't imagine, how Judaism would continue, which we've spoken about. How would it continue without the temple? That's where the seat of power was. That's where the Kohanim, the priests and the Levites, that's where they did the service in the temple. That's where people came for the holidays, the pilgrimage. That's where everything happened. So what happens when it's gone? And they thought, our world is destroyed. Now, the rabbis did a beautiful job of reimagining Judaism and allowing it to go back into the hands of the people and saying, you know what, you have small temples now, they're called shuls. You have small places of learning, they're called study halls. So they did a really good job of moving the locus of power so that everybody felt more connected, and they didn't depend on this center of Judaism in Jerusalem. They didn't completely depend on it after that. And also the Jewish people were exiled mostly from Israel, so a lot of them weren't living in Israel anyway. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so now look at the first page. I made 2 different charts, kind of. So again, remember we said new mourning, like when somebody loses a parent, a sibling, a child, or a spouse. Hold on one second. Sorry, I have to send a text message. I apologize. Okay. So we can see for new morning, right? So new morning, I skipped the funeral. The funeral would be the new morning, basically. So then there's the Shiva comes right after the funeral. Remember what we said, sit on low chairs, you wear Yom Kippur shoes, which are supposed to be less comfortable, although honestly today they're often more comfortable because they're Crocs or sneakers, but they're not leather. That's a sign of mourning, not to wear leather shoes. People who are vegan never wear leather shoes, so whatever. Then the Shloshim, yeah.
Interrupt. I have a question. Do you always have to wear shoes for Shabbat? Somebody told me.
What do you mean wear shoes? I mean, can you go barefoot?
With the socks, not shoes. And they told me that to put shoes on because you always
Are
have
you
to put
talking about in the house?
in the house, yeah, for Shabbat. No, that's what I thought.
Shabbat? No, I don't know why you'd have to do that.
Yeah, I was
People go barefoot, people wear socks, people do whatever they want. You can do
Yes.
whatever you want.
So
I mean, there is a thing about wearing Shabbat clothing on Shabbat. That is true. But that has nothing to do with what's on your feet. Some people come in New York, it's very common to take off shoes and just be in socks the whole time.
mhm. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
100%. I don't know where that came from. No, sorry. I'm glad you asked. So remember, we have Shiva. Then we step down the morning to Shloshim, right? Then Shloshim means 30. So it's another 3 weeks, right? Because there's 1 week, then 3 weeks. And then another 11 months for the year of mourning where we again step down. Everybody with me on that? That's how new mourning works. Look how old mourning works. We start with the 3 weeks, which is sort of comparable to the year of mourning. It's similar. Then we narrow the focus and you can do even fewer things. In other words, more restrictions because of mourning. Because, let's say I said to you for the next 3 weeks, you can't watch TV. I don't know, just throwing that out, or listen to music or go out. You would feel a sense of restriction. You would feel a sense of maybe sadness or reducing your joy. Think about what happened during COVID, how much all of us felt restricted because we couldn't go out, that kind of thing. So we start by restricting some of the things we do during the 3 weeks. We narrow it even more in the last 9 days. And the very last day is Tisha B'Av, meaning the 9th of Av. And that is the most stringent. But if you look at the chart, they're like opposite. Do you see how they're opposite in how the mourning gets less and less with new mourning and stricter with the old mourning? Again, in order to build up this feeling of sadness. So by the time we get to Tisha B'Av, we feel more ready to feel the sadness because we've read sad portions on Shabbat. We've done other things where you have to be thoughtful about, like, there was a thing in Israel because of the war, there were 2 weeks where people couldn't get married. Some people did, like just a few people in the backyard, but a lot of couples just didn't get married. And the chief rabbi of Israel, I think, said that just for this year, those who were not able to get married can get married during the 3 weeks. I don't think during the 9 days, but usually during the 3 weeks, Ashkenazim, not Sfardim, but Ashkenazim don't have any live music or festivities during the 3 weeks. That's one of the limitations of the restrictions of the 3 weeks. So that was an interesting halachic answer, given the fact that there were 2 weeks where they couldn't get married. Okay. And you don't want to push it off forever. Okay. Can we go to the second page?
Yeah.
Great. So now I flipped the order so that the most restrictive ones are on the top, then it gets less restrictive and then least restrictive, in order for you to see a comparison between the most and then the medium and the least restrictive, even though the timelines are flipped, right? Remember that? Just want to remind you that the timelines are flipped. Okay. So during Shiva, which is equivalent to Tisha B'Av, in other words, Tisha B'Av is modeled after Shiva. There's no washing or minimal washing. There's no leather shoes. People generally don't talk frivolously. Like usually when you go to a Shiva house, you don't just usually talk about sports. You actually allow the mourner to lead, and generally you're going to talk about the person who passed away or their relationship, and that's what you come to hear about, is to offer comfort for that. There's no greetings usually. You don't say, hi, how you doing? We don't study Torah for joy. You're only allowed to study specific portions of Torah during Shiva, usually having to do with mourning. no perfumes or anointing, no marital relations, and people sit on low stools or low chairs. I don't have to say stools, I'm gonna say chairs. Okay, that's what happens during Shiva. What happens on Tisha B'Av? There's no washing. Again, if you got dirty or yucky, then you can wash, but we're talking about washing more for pleasure. No leather shoes, generally no talking frivolously, no greetings, at least, I think Rav Stephen even said all day, we don't say hi. He answers the phone something like Stephen here, instead of saying hi, it's Stephen, okay? And it makes a difference because it puts you in the mindset of we're not saying, hi, how you doing? No studying Torah for joy. You're not supposed to study regular Torah on Tisha B'Av. No perfumes or anointing, no marital relations. Sit on low chairs or stools or on the floor until midday. But there's an addition of no eating and drinking. Now, why do you think that the rabbis added no eating or drinking on Tisha B'Av? Any thoughts about that?
Because it's like Yom Kippur, kind of, it's a fast.
Okay, although there's an inherent difference between Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. Yom Kippur is one of our happiest days. It's considered a holiday, whereas Tisha B'Av is a day of mourning. So they're very dissimilar that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're similar because they're both 25-hour fasts. One is biblical, one is rabbinic, but they're not similar in their character. Why do you think now the Torah told us we have to fast Yom Kippur, so then we don't really have a choice unless there's a medical reason. But why do you think the rabbis added an extra layer to Tisha B'Av, which is the most stringent, remember, of the 3 weeks? It's the end, it's the culmination. Why do you think they added no eating or drinking? Any thoughts?
Maybe because the temples were destroyed and
Yeah, that's correct.
people.
But why specifically add eating and drink, no eating? Why make it a fast day? Why not make it exactly like Shiva? And during Shiva, you're allowed to eat. There's no problem.
I guess to like emphasize the grief.
Well, what happens during a fast day usually? I mean, people get kind of low. I'm not talking about Yom Kippur right now, but it's hard. It's hard to fast. You don't feel
they
so
get
well.
sad. They get
You might
sad.
get sad, exactly.
Maybe that's
Draggy.
why he wanted them to feel more mourning.
More
To
mourning.
have a-
And also, it pulls people together, right? When you know that everybody or pretty much everybody around you is fasting, it creates a sense of community. I do believe it does. And it also keeps your mind on the reason that we're fasting. It's not like on Yom Kippur where there's singing and there's davening, praying. It's a very different feel. Tisha B'Av, we listen to sad poems, poetry. There's explanations for it. Everybody's invited to Zoom. I think we'll do a Zoom or just come to HR. Well, that's going to be hard. But Jeff and Latoya are invited to come. It is on a Sunday this year, so it's not so difficult to come. You have to take off a day of work. It's very hard to work on Tisha B'Av, I have to say. But if you have to, you do. I worked in Israel sometimes on Tisha B'Av. I had no choice. But I think that the sages use the fast days as a vehicle to pull people together in a certain direction. And new mourning is obviously going to have grief and sadness usually associated with it anyway. Whereas on Tisha B'Av, we need to overlay components to make people feel the sadness or to help people. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, let's go to the next one. It goes, so in Shiva, look how I did the arrow. The arrow goes from Shiva to Shloshim. So what happens on Shloshim? You're allowed to wash. You shower only as needed, but not so much for pleasure. But you can wear leather shoes. You're still not supposed to get haircuts. Oh, I didn't write that here. Let me add that 1 second. That's on mine. I don't think it's on yours. No. Oh, it is on yours.
We have it. No haircuts.
Are you seeing on the Shloshim, but there's no
Yes.
haircuts or shaving in the Shiva one, so I just added that. Okay. Right, so you don't don pressed clothing to feel new. You don't wear new clothing as a rule.
Mm-hmm.
Even shaving is not common unless needed for work. Okay, some people say that they, like a lawyer who says, I have to look my best in court, or whatever, a person who feels like they look unkempt, that that might affect their work. So during Shiva, you're at home anyway, but afterwards then you go to work. I just had a question from somebody who was he's a physician. He was being called as an expert witness in front of the court. And he said, I can explain to the court that I haven't shaved, but I'm worried that the lawyer who's hiring me won't be so happy. So we agreed in the end that he'll speak to the lawyer and say, look, if you feel this affects the way I look, I will shave, no problem. I want you to understand that it comes because my mother just passed away and I'm mourning. So it is a real life question about getting a haircut or shaving. Now, if you look, the 9 days, right? The 9 days are very similar. You don't listen to live music, shower only is needed, no swimming. So you could swim during Shloshim, I think, but not for pleasure, maybe. I'm not sure. But you could do it for exercise. If you need it for exercise, some kids are taking like swimming lessons so they could take during the 9 days. You don't have freshly laundered clothing. We usually don't wash clothing during the 9 days. We wash everything before the 9 days. I'm not talking if something gets yucky and you have to wash it now, you can't. But just your clothing, you just put into the laundry. There's a lot of laundry to wash after the 9 days. We don't, because there's also, for many of us, joy in washing clothing and folding it and putting it away. It feels good. It's nice, fresh, clean clothing. This is considered one of the ways that we reduce our pleasure. But you notice that I did the arrows in the direction of the timeline. Everybody got that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So here's an interesting thing. The same way we don't have eating on Tisha B'Av during the 9 days, by the way, this is for Ashkenazim, Sephardim are different. No meat or wine, not on Shabbat. On Shabbat, you can have meat or chicken or wine. Meat always includes chicken. Did you know that? We've gone through that, right? When I say no meat, it actually, okay. So during the 9 days, during the week, not on Shabbat, we don't drink wine or grape juice, any grape products. I mean, wine or grape juice, you can have wine vinegar. And we don't have meat. Now, I want to tell you, there was one year when I was so miserable during the 9 days because I tried all these, and a vegan person sent me like 10 new recipes. And I tried them and I hated every single recipe. And I was so hungry. And I said, that's it. Next year during the 9 days, I'm eating my tried and true recipes. I was so hungry the whole time. Because, once you make a whole bunch of food, you don't feel like making food again. So I'm going to make my usual. I'll make salmon and tofu and tuna patties and maybe a parv stew or something like that. But I'm not trying new recipes during the 9 days when I'm very hungry. And I can't just go have some meat or chicken, which is what usually fills me up. That's me. I can't have dairy, so I can't get full from dairy. That's also a problem. A lot of people can get full from dairy. But why did they superimpose meat or wine? That doesn't happen during Shloshim. But the thing is that meat and wine are signs of joy in Judaism. That's why we always have wine or grape juice like Kiddush and at a wedding and at a Brit Milah, circumcision. And I can't remember, Havdalah, we always have it. Everybody with me? So meat or wine. So those are signs of joy. Now, if somebody's vegetarian or vegan, obviously meat isn't an issue for them, but that's not most of the people, at least not nowadays. So they wouldn't feel a difference. Anybody who's pescatarian, vegetarian, or vegan will not feel a difference during the 9 days, except for if they drink wine usually, but they won't feel a difference in their food. All right, next. The last level is the year of mourning, which is compared to the 3 weeks. So the year of mourning, generally the person who's the mourner does not attend wedding or other events with live music. They refrain from social gatherings, refrain from concerts, haircuts after someone mentions you need to remember a year is only for parents. It's not for any other of the mourners. Second one right here, especially large. Okay. And in the 3 weeks, again, Ashkenazim don't get married. We have minimal social gatherings, no concerts or musicals, generally no haircuts. And we refrain from saying Shechianu on new fruit or new clothing. So why is it that we wouldn't say Shechianu on new fruit or new clothing? Remember, Shechianu is that special bracha we make. Why do you think they added that to the 3 weeks?
Because it's also like a joy, you know.
It's a joy. That's why we say Shechianu. Shechianu is a joyous blessing. It's when there's a new child, we said, or on a new holiday when it's joyous, or when we eat. You know what? I just bought a peach and a nectarine for the first time, and I love it, especially the first time I eat one. It was such a joy to say Shechianu. I mean, it really tasted good. And I remember saying to myself, do it now, because during the 3 weeks, you're not supposed to take a new fruit and say Shechianu. Now, if for some reason on Shabbat of the 3 weeks, then you can, but you should try to do it ahead of time. I don't think there's any other fruit that I didn't eat. Can't remember that I want to eat, but it was so delicious that first bite. And new clothing, so wait for 3 weeks, you know? Wait for 3 weeks to say Shechianu. So I really think this is important, because people will say things like, when did the 3 weeks start? Is it July? Is it August? What are you doing during the 9 days? Where are you for Tisha B'Av? You know, those are words you're going to hear. So I want to make sure you understand when somebody says, what are you making during the 9 days? And you'll be like, what are you talking about? But now you understand that the reason they're saying it is because people who eat meat and chicken, you know, they'll feel like, okay, we now have to, I don't know, order pizza every night or whatever it is that they do, or have fish and chips. Oh, fish and chips. That's a good one, Martin. Let's put fish and chips on our menu. I feel it's so important. What often happens with kids who don't, you know, they don't go to school in the summer, they don't learn about the 3 weeks and the 9 days. And I was very lucky. My father of blessed memory, he was very knowledgeable, and he always taught us every Shabbat, anything having to do with that time of year. We learned about every holiday, every fast day, you know, Pesach, everything. We learned about it all the time. And if it wasn't a special holiday, he would teach us about the Parsha. So we learned about the 3 weeks and the 9 days in Tisha B'Av. I never understood how people didn't know about it, because I learned, you know, from a very young age, every year he would teach us. So it was odd to me that other people don't just have these words as part of their lexicon. But it's not their fault. But for me, it was odd. I'm very lucky that I was brought up that way. 2 other things that you would need to know is that the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av is called Shabbat Chazon. And the reason why it's called Shabbat Chazon is because the special Haftarah, remember the Haftarah is what we read after the Torah reading, right? When we pick up the Torah, we close it, then they read from a book, from prophets. So it's a special one, a very sad one that starts with the word Chazon. And that's why we call it Chazon, means a vision. It's a vision of Isaiah, very sad. And the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av is called Shabbat Nachamu, which means be comforted, also from Isaiah. And it starts, yes, the Haftarah starts with the word Nachamu. So during the 3 weeks, we read these special sad Haftarahs, but starting from after Tisha B'Av, it's actually Haftarahs of comfort. And they bring us all the way to Rosh Hashanah, 7 weeks, and then we get to Rosh Hashanah. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you've heard of Tu B'Av. We learned about that. Tu B'Shvat and Tu B'Av. We said it's the 15th day of Av, which is sort of the Valentine's Day. It has to do with love. Anyway, it comes out on Shabbat this year, the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av, just so you know. And that was a day of reconciliation. We haven't really learned about it. We'll make sure to learn about it next year. But you could look it up, Tubav, Tu B'Av. Now, I put some sources here on page 3, okay? And these sources give you a little bit of a feeling of what it's like to learn from our sources, biblical or otherwise. So the first source is from the Gemara, the Talmud, and I'm just going to read to you the English. Rav Ashi stated a different resolution. The reason I'm telling you this is so you see the source for old mourning and new mourning. New mourning, i.e. the mourning of a relative who has just passed away. By the way, the bolded part is what's written in the Talmud, and the non-bolded is what they added to explain, just so you know why there's bolded and unbolded. Because the Gemara in Aramaic is very short. It just expects you to understand. It's shorthand. It's different from old mourning, i.e. what is old mourning? You now know what old mourning is. A half hour ago, you might not have understood this paragraph, but now it's more clear. The mourning over historic events such as the destruction of the temple, it is appropriate to be more lenient in the latter, meaning that we should be more lenient for old mourning if you need to give remember, sometimes people have questions. Can I get a haircut? Can I this? Can I that? So when you're mourning for a parent or for a close relative, we don't want to be so lenient because, you know, it's important for you to really mourn for that person. But when it's old mourning, you can be more lenient. And the mourning of the public is different from the private mourning of the individual. And it's appropriate to be more stringent for the individual. Again, new mourning is always going to be individual. Who said that? Somebody said that here. It's the personal. You said it, Mariana. Whereas old mourning is public mourning, right? Because it's everybody. Actually, there's no other old mourning except for the destruction of the temples. Although I would venture to say, like October 7th or the Shoah, like that's public mourning at this point. It's old mourning. I mean, October 7th isn't even old yet, but for many years it's going to be, you know, commemorated as a horrible day of destruction in the Jewish people. Okay, so that's one, and it doesn't matter what it says after. That was the most important thing. Then, this is Jeremiah. This has to do with how to mourn the temple. Thus says the Lord of hosts, contemplate your situation, call upon the dirge women to come and send for the wise women to come. There used to be women who would actually cry. I've seen this happen in South America. They have, there are places which have this also as a, I think it's South America, that have it as a custom where women come and they cry and wail, and that at a funeral, and that brings tears. Let them come quickly, raise up a wailing for us, that our eyes run with tears and our eyes gush with waters. But this has to do with mourning for the temples. And in Zechariah, it says, they sent a message to speak, one second, speak out the question of the priest, the temple host, the prophet saying, should I weep in the 5th month, abstaining from pleasures? Because once they set up Tisha B'Av for the first temple, I think they set it up for the first temple, and they came back and rebuilt the second temple, are you still supposed to mourn? So that was a question that they asked. They said, yes, we're still mourning the fact that the first temple. Hey, Gabby, we're still mourning even the first temple. So I just, the 5th month, by the way, is because in the Torah, the first month is Pesach, remember? So if we start from Pesach and we count 5 months, we get to the month of Tisha B'Av. Everybody with me on that? Tisha B'Av means the 9th day of Av. And Av is the 5th month according to the biblical calendar. Remember what we said, that Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, is the first month of the world, the birthday of the world, but Nisan, when Pesach happens, is the birthday of the Jewish people. So in the Torah, Pesach is the first month. But when, so anyway, that's just something we've mentioned a few times. And then what else? Right, the Shulchan Aruch. So we've learned about the Shulchan Aruch. He was in like the 1500s, and he wrote the Code of Jewish Law. And he wrote, it is proper for every God, I'm on the 4th page, for every God-fearing person to feel pain and anguish over the destruction of the temple. Okay. And Rav Stephen Exler, our own rabbi, he wrote this, and I copied it because I thought it was so beautiful. Latoya, would you read that out loud for us, please, if you don't mind?
Sure. The goal of Jewish life is celebrating and emphasizing life, but mourning and death are part of it too, and 3 weeks out of the year are geared towards experiencing collective national loss and entering that emotional religious space. Even if it doesn't rattle or shake you to realize that there were centuries upon centuries of Jewish communities for whom this place once represented one place represented the presence of God in their lives, remember that this was a place where mourners came, where bridegrooms came.
No, bridegrooms.
Bridegrooms came. It should be two hyphenated. The central hub of communal Jewish life.
Word.
Maybe.
Wait, is that one word, Martin? Bridegrooms?
I think it was the,
whatever. Yeah,
it was the central hub of the communal Jewish life, and the sense of that locus becoming vulnerable is an awareness that even the things we hold most sacred can be violated in this world. Even the most sacred things in society can be ruptured, their physical presence gone. So how do I go on?
Wow. Yeah, I find that very powerful. I don't remember where he wrote that, but I saw that. I thought that was, by the way, if anybody wants to read, I put out my sermon from Shabbat today in the email, and it's about having hope, finding hope when things feel hopeless. So you may want to read that. So he was talking about Tisha B'Av. I love the way he says, remember, even if you don't know what the temple was like, everybody came there to celebrate, to commemorate. People came. People who were mourners, by the way, it's really beautiful. People walked like this around the temple, the courtyard. And then people who were mourners walked this way. So people would see you and they would stop and say, what happened? Who did you lose? Who were you mourning? It's a really beautiful custom. So nobody would feel alone. So it represented the presence of God in their lives. How do you go on? So we spoke about how you go on. The rabbis reimagined, reinvented the next stage of Judaism by putting the study and the power of prayer back in the hands of the people. And this is just a model of the third temple. Okay, that was a lot of material I gave you. Oops, keep losing Gabby. Is that questions, thoughts, any? It's very much a part of the Jewish calendar in the summer. Very, very much a part of that. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of it. No questions, anything? No, we're good?
It was very good. Thank you. It was great. It was
Good.
a very good class.
Sorry, Gabby. Gabby having internet problems, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm
I'm gonna be coming in and out probably. I don't know what's going on.
Well, we're almost finished anyway. So yeah, I just really wanted you to know about it because as you move in your shuls and among, other Orthodox people, you're going to hear these terms, you're going to hear them mentioned and you're going to wonder about them. Oh, what I didn't say because I didn't prepare a source sheet was at the beginning of the 3 weeks, the first day of the 3 weeks is also a fast day, but that's morning till night. Very long though, because remember the sun sets very late. So that's called the 17th day of Tammuz. The way the 3 weeks work, the first half is in Tammuz, the second half is in Av. So the 17th day of Tammuz, which is going to be 2 weeks from yesterday, is a fast day from morning till night. And that it's kind of bookended by 2 fast days. Not so much fun. Not the most fun time in the Jewish calendar, understatement. So just so you know. Now that fast day is morning till night. You can get up early before sunrise and eat and drink something. It's still a hard fast day because it's a very long day and the sun is hot and it's very hard to be outside. If people who have to be outside, let's say in Israel or whatever, they drink because it could actually be dangerous. You can get dehydrated. Certainly soldiers can, but be careful not to get dehydrated. If you have any questions, if you feel like you can't fast, at the very least, try to fast half a day, meaning till about 1 o'clock, I think is about considered half a day of the daylight hours, about 1, I think. Do your best. It's hard. One of the harder things of becoming an Orthodox Jew is fasting. Not one of the easier ones. I mean, there are a lot of hard parts, but that's one of them. And that's really what you need to know. And I'd love for everybody to tell me what they're thinking of doing to improve, to review, what do you want to take on yourself for this summer? That'll be your summer project. I think we did that last summer too. It was good. And remember, everybody should do a check-in with me. Yeah, Mariana.
I was thinking of reading some books. I prepared them.
That's wonderful. Like which ones?
I'll get the one you just showed, and then I'm reading Telushkin book right now.
Great. It's hard to read the whole thing, but just take little chunks.
Yeah, little chunks. But my favorite books by Sachs, Rabbi Sachs. Jonathan. Somehow it's easy for me to read them.
That's great. So this one, she's actually a journalist. She's actually a media person. She's one of the most beloved in Israel. She's amazing. So it is written a little bit like that, but it's nice. And it'll get you used to a little bit more about, she writes everything in English here, but I think it'll get you into a slightly different mode. Like Rabbi Sachs really assumes you know nothing and he doesn't dumb anything down. He just explains everything as he goes along. I think it's good because it's short and every week sitting at the Shabbat table, you could read 1 or 2. My daughter does that with her kids at the Shabbat table. It's very nice. Great. That's terrific. I like that. Let's tell you, what are you thinking? You have a lot.
I do. And I have a big old nice book here. So I plan to go over a few things and keep everything, abreast on my top of my head so I know a lot and continue to practice. That's my goal for the summer.
That's terrific. Should we,
Sorry.
what'd you say, Mariana?
I
What?
was just asking Latoya how many years? Is it your third year or
Oh, this is my second year.
second year?
Mhm. Yeah.
So make sure you set up a time with me in July, Latoya and
Yes.
Jeff. Okay, great. It could be the first week in August, but it could be also. All right, Gabby.
Yeah, just
What are you
practicing
thinking?
prayers and blessings more. I'm
Right.
going to print out like a morning checklist almost so I can have it in
That's great.
view. So I can remember to do
Right.
my modani, do my hand washing. So
Beautiful.
I can kind of start doing that,
Great.
the habit of that.
Great. I love that. That's great. I like that everybody takes different things. That's important to them. All right, my friends, remember, set up a time to talk with me, to get a timeline, you know, with that. Well, with Latoya, we have a timeline. For Gabby, Mariana, less so. Let's talk even a little more depth into what you want to, you know, where you feel you need improvement for the next year, how you see the timeline. As you can see, Latoya was able to make huge strides in 2 years. Huge, like it's just amazing.
Thank you.
So, oh yeah.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, exactly. So, as all of you have. I mean, I see that in Mariana and in Gabby as well. I 100% see it. So everybody set up time with me. And again, I really hope that next year we'll have Jeff and Juliet as well, who are just totally lovely. And we'll have a nice group for next year for the advanced class.
Thank you.
All right.
If you miss us,
All right,
guys,
my
join
friend.
us.
What?
No, I was just telling Jeff and Latoya, if you miss us, guys, join our class. We'll miss.
I'm sure you will.
I'd
Yeah.
love to see any updates of like your wedding photos, anything like that.
Of
You email
course.
us.
Yeah.
I'll drop it in the
September.
chat. Gabrielle, I'll put in the chat.
Okay.
Yes, show us in the chat.
Yes.
Have fun preparing.
Wait, now in
Thank
the
you so
chat, so I
much.
shouldn't turn it off?
Oh, no, we have our own chat.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. That makes me happy. All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Enjoy
Bye.
your summer, everyone.
You too.
Be
Thanks.
well, be safe.